can't hear you.
Cusick, the minister serving this fellowship. My pronouns are he and him. It's so great to have you with us here in Fellowship Hall, and so great to have all of you out in virtual space with us this morning. Thank you for gathering in community, however we are able to do that. Just a couple of reminders this morning. Thank you so much for following safety guidelines and taking care of each other and staying masked and keeping space between you. Also, it's the hardest part, and I really miss this. We're kind of a hugging congregation, and it's hard to not hug, and it's hard to not shake hands. But a fist bump or an elbow touch will do until we're able to safely check in with each other if a hug is okay. But that will come in all due time. For those of you out in virtual space, I recommend that you set your settings to speaker view, so you'll have the best viewing experience, but also to please mute your speaker except for during milestones. If you're in Fellowship Hall, welcome again, and it's good to have you in 3 dimensions, and it's good to have you in 2 dimensions. But in Fellowship Hall, we've been in our virtual, our social media and electronics for such a long time. Just turn them off and enjoy being present, because that will leave the bandwidth for the best possible service. Here's the tough one for today. This is a service about music. That's not the tough part. We have a legacy of music here at the UU Fellowship that informs who we are and how we got to where we are. Even though, as I recall from last week's service, that the time that the congregation was without singing may have been longer than the time of the congregation with singing. That said, it's really hard to be in this room and hear a beloved song and want to sing along and know that that's not a safe practice right now. But for today, if you want to hum quietly, that's okay, and I won't be able to see your lips move. Back at home, sing loud, sing often. And thank you for your patience as we continue to learn a little more every week on the intricacies of multi-platform streaming. Thanks for being here as we continue our celebration of 75 years of fellowship life in Ames. Each week, we begin our service with the ringing of this chime 3 times. Once to wake the chime, once to open our minds, and once to open our hearts. The chalice lighting words this morning are by Marnie Singer. A close-up of the strings of a stand-up bass being plucked by a musician's hand. The chalice is the container, the space where the musicians and the listeners gather. The oil is the fuel, the hours of practice and the life experiences of everyone in the room. The wick is the instruments and vocal cords through which the music will flow. And the flame is the music which is created, as if by magic, when the instruments are lifted, the breath is inhaled, and the downbeat is nodded. May this flame ignite all of the music within us. We have a special guest this morning. I want to welcome Sue Haug to Fellowship Hall this morning, who will be playing live music for us today. Live music in the Fellowship Hall again. You're in for a special treat. And her first piece this morning is a Bach piece, a prelude and fugue. Thank you, Sue. What a beautiful way to start the morning. Sunshine and Bach. Doesn't get much better. Okay, we're done. No, we will keep going. The opening words this morning are from the UU Fellowship of Ames Ministerial Search Packet from 2011. It's one of the things I read that said, wow, I think these might be my people. And this is what that packet shared about music. Music at UUFA is not just an element to work into a Sunday service. It is an expression of who we are and what we believe. not just in lyrics or harmonies, but in the participatory way that we bring music to life. We celebrate the talents of our individual members and youth as they add richness to our shared services. We make music together through organized choirs and other performance groups. Our choir joins with other Ames choirs in community performances, and some of our members have joined UU musicians from across North America to tour Transylvania. Our fellowship hall is a favorite venue for local music recitals. We welcome regional and national performers to our space for evening concerts and to participate in our Sunday programs. And with that in mind, our next piece of music is one that is a UU favorite all over the country, Spirit of Life, which this morning is sung by Reggie Greenlaw, who will invite you to sing along if you wish. And I'm going to invite you to hum along if you wish. This is Spirit of Life.
This song is Spirit of Life by Carolyn McDade. Please sing along if you feel like it. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Giving life the shape of justice. Roots holding close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. One more. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
This morning, our Time for All Ages is a musical time for all ages. Give Us Hope by Jim Papoulis was composed in response to September 11th as a way of bringing people together. The song offers a peaceful tone and a powerful message of hope for a better world to come. The children, through music, examine their world and how small steps can be made to improve it. With this anthem, we hear small voices calling us to listen, to look in each other's eyes, and to help each other find a way to hope. The combined UUFA Children's Choir, directed by Ann Kimber, and the Fellowship Voices, directed by Susan Posh, sang Give Us Hope on February 16, 2020, 1 month before this building was closed because of the pandemic. May each of us continue to find hope in the wisdom of our children. And as we listen to the recording of that service, I invite you to imagine the children and the adults standing together over here. That is actually a picture of that moment. Give us hope.
Listen to the sound of my voice calling. Can you feel the beat of my heart pounding? Listen to the questions I have. Listen, listen to me. We are the future. How will you lead? Give us hope. My voice is calling. Can you see? Look in my eyes. Can you feel? My hand is reaching. Give us hope, and we'll show you the way. Take my hand. Now look in my eyes. Tell me what you see. Give us hope. My voice is calling. Can you see? Look in my eyes. Can you feel? My hand is reaching. Give us hope, and we'll show you the way. Give us hope. My voice is calling. Can you see? Look in my eyes. Can you feel? My hand is reaching. Give us hope, and we'll show you the way. Show you the way. My voice is calling. Show you the way. My voice is calling. Show you the way.
The offertory recipient for October is the Ames Animal Shelter, which this recipient was chosen by the children in our religious education programming. And they have a message for you as to why you might want to consider giving a gift today.
I think you should give money to the animal shelter so all the pets can have a good home. And we got my dog she was a rescue because she got dropped off on a doorstep with 9 other puppies.
Please give money to the Ames Animal Shelter to give animals good homes. My favorite animal is the unicorn because I'm the queen of unicorns.
Give money to the Ames Animal Shelter so they can protect animals that have been lost or injured. So that they can hire people to walk animals like dogs and get food and medicine for the pets that live there.
Every day that you get encouragement from the Queen of Unicorns. Remember the mystical and the magical. It's very important. At the end of the service, please consider going to our UUFA webpage, look for the giving site, and thank you for your generosity on behalf of the kids and in support of the shelter. And here in Fellowship Hall, if you'd like to write a check or leave cash, there's a basket by the table. Sue Haug is not just joining us for music, she's also sharing some memories of her longtime association with this fellowship and how music was part of her life here. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you for this chance to share with you. It was really fun to think back about the nearly 30 years that I participated in this congregation, especially the musical life of this church. I lived here from 1975 to 2005, and after Dan, my son, was born in 1981, we got much more active. And so one of my very favorite memories as of the times when Dan and I would share. And I think he was probably in middle school when we started sharing. He on his oboe and me accompanying him on the piano. And if you're a parent, you know how treasured those memories are. But what strikes me about that is also just the incredible warm embrace that this congregation provided for this young, growing musician. The oboe is not an easy instrument, and middle school may not be the ideal time for someone to share their music, but you were so affirming for us in our congregation, in our contributions, and for that I was always grateful. I played a lot of solo music here too, and most of my music has a date. So when I open the music, I'll see the date that I played it here. So I also am reminded of the way in which you embraced me and my contributions throughout all those years. I played with Ed Carberry on cello and Larry Burkhalter on violin. You may remember those years. We had this piano trio. And the repertory for that combination of instruments is, fantastic, especially in the classical period. So we often would play Mozart trios or Beethoven trios. But what I remember was when Brian Esslinger was a minister, he would invite us to pick a trio to play the whole thing. It might be a 20-minute contribution, and he would build a service around it. And that was always really delightful for us. The piano, of course, some of you may remember when we didn't have this beautiful instrument, and Dr. Stan Siren, who generously gave it, actually Kent reminded me that he had heard me play the Bach Goldberg variations in the little upright in the fellowship hall and decided maybe it was time to upgrade the instrument, and so this beautiful piano appeared. My background is in classical music. I was on the faculty at Iowa State, but there were so many musicians with other kinds of training. Of course, Barbie and Reggie Greenlaw with their wonderful contributions in the folk music realm especially. But we also had ministers who brought us some really wonderful folk traditions. And early on, you may remember Sidney Morris and her husband John, and they got us out of the hymn books. And we were singing Native American rounds and lots of folk music, music from the civil rights era and so on. I think very fondly of those times. And then when Carol Hepikoski was our minister and her husband John Berquist brought music from the Iron Range. He's a scholar of that music and especially Finnish American music, and so there were lots of things we sang with John, especially with his accordion and guitar playing. But I thought that all of these folk music traditions added so much to especially the congregational singing in those days. I also just think so much about the ways in which the contributions of the children were celebrated. Often we'd have a 30-second prelude that a child would bring to us, and it was always received with such loving care. And of course, all the groups, the volunteers, the singers, the folks who have added their musical gifts. It's what makes us a fellowship. I'm in a congregation now that has a fantastic music program, largely by paid professional staff. And so what I appreciate coming back here is the ways in which we honor that fellowship spirit with people contributing. And those of us who give always receive in equal or greater measure. I just want to say about the Bach Prelude and Fugue that I picked to play for you. It was sort of a retirement idea I had. People would say, what are you going to do in retirement? So I said, well, maybe I'll finally learn all the Bach preludes and fugues. There are 2 volumes. Each one goes through all the major and minor keys. So there are a total of 48. So I've been retired now 3 years, and that's the second I've learned. So, so you gave me inspiration to get going on that project and sort of, keep all the neurons firing when you play a fugue. You got to keep, it's a mindfulness practice if there ever was one. The last piece I'll play, this beautiful rag of William Bolcom. I have a note in my music that says I played it almost exactly 20 years ago here. So I will hope you enjoy it the second time around.
Thank you, Sue. I was just thinking as you were speaking that, let's see, if you came here once a month for the next 4 years and did one prelude, that may be unrealistic. But anyway, thank you for sharing your music and your memories. The fellowship voices, when we are in open session, sing between services every week. And a piece of music that they sing every time they gather is Harmonia Mundi.
We gather here together with joyful hearts and minds. We praise our voices together, our gifts and souls to bind. There's no of friendship, love, and joy that music made together may one day heal mankind. There's no of friendship, love, and joy that music made together may one day heal mankind.
This morning I'd like to share a few words from The Power of Music by Rich Coffey. The Dalai Lama observed, among the many forms in which the human spirit has tried to express its innermost yearnings and perceptions, music is perhaps the most universal. It symbolizes the yearnings for harmony with oneself and with others, with nature, and with the spiritual and sacred within us and around us. There is something in music that transcends and unites. This is evident in the sacred music of every community, music that expresses the universal yearning that is shared by people all over the globe. One group that sings regularly here at the fellowship, that sings of that universal yearning, is Women in the Round. They gathered last week to record this piece called Deep Peace.
Deep peace of the running way to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the shining star to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the running way to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the shining star to you. Deep peace of the shining star to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you.
Good morning, I'm Kitty Fisher. I wanted to digress a little and make a comment about a music memory I have about Sue. Whenever we go to Transylvania, we always include music to some degree. And in the Tordat Falva Church, up in the loft, is an old pipe organ. The kind where you have to pump the pedals and somebody has to do the air thing to get it to work. And so Sue would play that pipe organ. It was quite an experience. Ubuntu is a song that the Fellowship Voices have sung many times. Ubuntu is a philosophy from South Africa that celebrates the human spirit and focuses on people's allegiances and relationships with each other. In a nutshell, it means a person is a person through other people. Whether a person is a musician or a listener, music embodies the essence of Ubuntu. Archbishop Desmond Tutu explained, "One of the sayings in our country is Ubuntu, the essence of being human. Ubuntu speaks particularly about the fact that you can't exist as a human in isolation. It speaks about interconnectedness. You can't be human all by yourself when you have Ubuntu. You can't be human all by yourself when you have music." So let's enjoy the Fellowship Voices singing Ubuntu in October 2017.
I can't hear Ubuntu, that recording, without visualizing Nawab on the other side of the piano, playing the shaker and dancing. Each week, we take time in our service to share milestones, important and significant things that are happening in our lives that are bringing us joy or challenge or gratitude. While we're in this multi-platform mode, this is a two-step milestones. People in Fellowship Hall are invited to share first, and then we'll take a pause and open the technology to our members in virtual space. So we'll start with Fellowship Hall. If you have a milestone to share, please line up over to the left of that microphone. And as you get to the microphone, you're welcome to lower your mask to share your milestone, and I will light a candle for you. This is our time of sharing.
Exactly 62 years ago to this date, October 10th, in Chicago, the White Sox were playing in the World Series. Didn't turn out all that well for the home team, but also in Chicago 62 years ago to this day, Sue and I started our lifetime together and dedicated our lives to each other. That seems to have turned out fine. So we thank you for sharing this special day with us.
Thank you. Thank you. He's right. He is right. But I wanted to share one other joy this morning while I'm here, and this is in a different vein. But this morning I stopped out at the park, Emma McCarthy Lee Park, to get a taste of our Ari in the Park program. And I can't tell you how excited I was to see all these active children and parents and teachers. It's a wonderful place to have a program. And Janelle, our Ari coordinator, is helping everybody come together and the program hang together. And what strikes me is this profound sense of optimism. So if you want a Sunday morning high, I would suggest that you stop at the park.
So this explains how we do 62 years together. I kind of do the basics and Sue does the embellishments.
With no additional milestones in Fellowship Hall, we'll pause. I'll let you know when folks in virtual space, when the mics are open. So hold on just one moment, please. While we're waiting, this is the most difficult part of the service technologically.
Are you ready for us, Kent? Bring me a glass of tea.
Go ahead, Irv. Go ahead, Irv.
Okay, I is glad to see Sue today. I recall her playing very much and the way hearing it again. But my milestone today is for my three kids, Abby, Ben, and Zach. I am so gifted to have them as my children. Abby particularly has been taking care of me for the last 3 or 4 years by coming up once a week from Des Moines and running chores for me or going to the pharmacy or whatever I needed. And I talk to them, all three of them, every week on Saturday morning. We have a Zoom meeting together, and it's been so great to have them all together. And Zach in Ottawa, Canada, is doing fine, and Ben is now working on a job, federal government, believe it or not. And Abby is just enjoying herself with, today she's at a regatta in Illinois with her daughter, Ellie. And it's just amazing how much they sacrifice for their own kids. And so I hope that you keep them in your heart. They grew up in this fellowship.
This is Sam Wormley, and I would like to thank Barb Evenson for the at least 14 years that she contributed accompaniment to the Fellowship Voices. She was, in a way, the glue that held us together for many, many years, and I just appreciate all of her efforts and contributions. Thank you.
This is Lynn Van Valen, and I wanted to share with all of you that on Friday I tested positive for COVID, so I'm quarantined now for the next week. I'm not feeling too bad. I have kind of typical cold kind of symptoms, headache, fever, sore throat, not coughing a whole lot. Tomorrow I will have an infusion at Mary Greeley of antibodies, and that should make me feel better and help me feel better. I want to thank the fellowship and a couple of members for really stepping forth. Mary Richards brought me groceries yesterday, and Ronnie Kahn is bringing me a meal today, some wonderful chicken soup. So I just feel really comforted by these things, even though I can't see anybody. I feel their love, and I thank you so much for thinking of me. That's all.
This is Bob Anderson. Yesterday I had a supreme joy of participating in the Ames Community Arts Council studio walk, and our dear friend Susan Norris opened her home, which is also her studio, and our walk through her home and her studio was sheer delight. It was absolutely wonderful. And it's great knowing that there's such talent here in our fellowship. Thank you.
This is Stasha in Oklahoma City, and I today would like to share and celebrate the life of my best friend's mother, Mary Cameron. John and I have been best friends since we were 18, freshman year of college in Memphis, Tennessee, and his mom, Mary, passed away in her sleep on Thursday morning. And after a long life full of lots of love with family and grandchildren and all of her friends around her, and just wanted to raise up her spirit in celebration of her life with our congregation today. Thank you.
The last candle is always lit for those joys, concerns, and gratitudes that we carry gently in our hearts. Know that whatever brought you here today, whether you're in fellowship hall or in virtual space, we are one community together. And in this community, no one ever needs to make the journey alone, and you are loved. So for all of those milestones, spoken and unspoken, let's be together in a moment of silence. It's good to be together.
Lonely, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my triumphant heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rider, as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, all weak intrepid around souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens, in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging beyond, breathe the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
The Fellowship Voices, in a very bittersweet memory, a beautiful memory though, of the celebration of life for Pat Trimble, where her one request was to have Blue Boat Home sung at her memorial. And I'll always remember the Fellowship Voices standing in the back of this hall behind the gathered congregation and singing that as beautifully as they did. A meaningful, rich moment. This morning, Sam Wormley will join us and offer some of his memories on music at the fellowship.
This is Sam Wormley. Cheryl introduced me to the fellowship in 1994. There was no choir, but on some Sundays, Bob Mollison would get up in front of the congregation and direct us as if we were one of his university choirs. 3 or 4 years later, Irv Luters formed the choir which would become known as the Fellowship Voices. Singers would come and go, but there was always this core quartet of Kitty Fisher, Duffy Lohr, Sam Wormley, and Rich Van Valen. That quartet perfected intonation, balance, and blend to the point that after some years, Irv Luters paid us the compliment of calling us the Mormon Tabernacle Quartet. During this time, I became chair of the Sunday morning program committee. Sue Haug was organizing accompanists and sometimes special music. Except for a few short years when we enjoyed having a music director, most of the music coordination came from fellowship musicians stepping forward to organize special music for Sunday services. There were many individual musicians, duets, trios, and especially from the youth that were growing up in our fellowship. Other groups included the Ames Piano Quartet, the Recorder Consort, string quartets, a brass quintet, the Music Men, an a cappella quintet, Women in the Round, directed by Jenny Mulgard, accordion duets and groups led by Peggy Earnshaw and Ann Kember, Yellow Rose of Suffrage Choir and duets led by Janet Alcorn. There was an Orff Instruments group, a youth ensemble playing Orff instruments, children's choir directed by Ann Kimber, and of course the Fellowship Voices. Led originally by Irv Luters and then Barb Evenson, Cynthia Martin, Janet Alcorn, Sam Wormley, and Susan Posh. One evening that stands out. It was in the spring of 2007. Irv Luters, his 10th year as our director of the Fellowship Voices. The choir had perhaps a dozen regulars, and Irv wanted to give a formal concert to the congregation. Megan Egan, an Iowa State student, had been accompanying the choir for the last 4 years. On a Saturday, the Sunday morning program committee met in the tower room, and that's now the Dustin Berger Library. Irv Luters was one of the members of that committee. After the meeting was over, Irv needed somebody to talk to. He shared with me his concerns about going off his aspirin in preparation for some minor ear surgery that he would have maybe a week later. We shared the next 2 hours, confiding and supporting each other. The next Wednesday evening, Irv never showed up for the choir rehearsal. Irv's wife, Dorothy, was out of town. Nobody answered the phone. Duffy, with a nurse friend of hers, stopped by the home. The nurse confirmed that Irv had died. I asked Barb Evenson if she would please conduct the choir for the next few weeks and perform the concert in honor of Irv. Barb did carry us on, and I thank her profoundly. It was an emotional concert. We sang well. The last piece, Love Will Guide Us, started in canon form that Irv had arranged and ended with the congregation singing with us. I've never heard our congregation sing so robustly. In all of that emotion and sadness and pride, as Love Will Guide Us ended, Through the Hard Night seemed to hang on forever. And I remember the face of Bobby Warman beaming in the congregation. The next fall, our minister, Brian Esslinger, recruited Cynthia Martin to lead the choir with Barb Evenson as accompanist. And a wonderful new era of the Fellowship Voices began. Cynthia introduced us to new contemporary music, had us perform as part of the Good Neighbor Choir concerts, in addition to our monthly contribution to our own Sunday services. After many years, Cynthia stepped down as music director, Janet Alcorn led us as a volunteer for the next couple of years, enriching the choir and congregation. When Janet left, Catherine Hoosman, Susan Posh, and I committed ourselves to keeping the fellowship voices organized and bringing new life to the written music for ourselves and for the congregation. Barb Evenson would continue to accompany. Catherine became the music librarian, and Susan and I shared the directing. Terrified, excited, and striving for musical excellence, I must admit that directing the voices is one of the most satisfying things I have ever done in my life. When the pandemic shut things down and we scrambled to do services virtually, new musical opportunities arose. Our minister, Kent McCusick, was able to introduce us to excellent, often pandemic-inspired recorded music, enriching our services. The voices have continued with virtual rehearsals to explore new music. Recorders and women in the round continue to rehearse. Music remains an integral part of our fellowship. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I welcome Sue Haug back to the keyboard to offer more special music. This is Last Rag by William Bolcom. Our closing hymn this morning is another favorite of this fellowship. Number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. So those of you in virtual space, please, the lyrics will be on the screen. Please sing loud and clear. And for those of you in Fellowship Hall, humming sounds good.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, the far of Him that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds echoing my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. Though storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? No prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
We close our service by extinguishing our chalice this morning, the words of Richard Gilbert. By our presence here with one another, hearing the harmony that is the music of spheres, may some of the harshness and discord of human lives be transmuted into music. A new song in our hearts may there be, and a new harmony in our beings, so that we shall return to our several duties with fresh courage, with eagerness, and with rejoicing. Thank you for joining us this morning in the service of music and memories. We'll continue our celebration of 75 years next week and throughout the entire month of October. Please join us. It takes many people to put a service together, and here's a list of all of those folks who contributed heartily to this service today, not to mention the many names of the singers that were on tape. Thank you all for being part of the service. And also thank you for your generosity in remembering to support those causes that are dear to our heart. It's good to be with you. We'll now go into in virtual space into the large breakout room where you can continue the conversation. Folks in Fellowship Hall can have some conversation, or if you'd like to join in with the virtual space, there's a monitor in the fireside room and one down in room 3 that you can say hello to our friends. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.